Kethral Vaughn stood at the observation window of the Coalition ship and watched the stars pass by. He was a warrior of the Thalassian Empire. His scales were dark blue, thick enough to stop a blade. His claws could tear through metal. His people had conquered 12 systems before joining the Galactic Assembly. He was proud. He had every right to be. But today, that pride felt heavy. Today, he was forced to serve alongside humans. The Coalition had been formed 3 weeks ago. The Galactic Assembly had called warriors from 7 different species to investigate the Vareth expanse. Ships had been vanishing there. Trade vessels, military scouts, research teams. They went in and never came out. No distress calls. No wreckage. Just silence. The Assembly wanted answers, so they sent the best warriors from every member species. And for some reason, they had included humans. Kethral turned from the window and looked across the common area. The Draven soldiers were sharpening their weapons in the corner. They were tall and thin, with 4 arms and eyes that could see in complete darkness. The Moric team was running combat drills near the cargo bay. They were heavy and slow, but their bodies could take punishment that would kill any other species. And then there were the humans. They sat at a table near the far wall. 5 of them. Small, soft, pink, and brown skin that could be cut with a simple blade. No claws, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind. Kethral did not understand why they were here. He walked toward the tactical station where Commander Velthar was reviewing mission data. The commander was also Thalassian, older, and scarred from many battles. "Commander," Kethral said, "may I speak freely?" Velthar looked up. "You may. Why are the humans here? This mission could be dangerous. They are not suited for combat. They will slow us down." Velthar was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "The Assembly requested them specifically. But why? I do not know. The humans have been part of the Assembly for only 30 years. They are new. Weak. But they have a reputation." "What reputation?" Velthar looked at the human table. "They do not give up. Ever. I have heard stories. Battles where they should have died. Situations where surrender was the only logical choice. They kept fighting. It makes no sense, but it is what they do." Kethral made a sound of disbelief. "Stubbornness is not the same as strength." "Perhaps not, but we will see." Kethral walked away. He did not believe the stories. Humans were prey animals who had somehow learned to use tools, nothing more. He decided to observe them. The leader of the human squad was a male named Daniel Cole. He was average height for a human, with short brown hair and a face that showed little emotion. He wore simple combat armor and carried a rifle that looked almost primitive compared to Thalassian weapons. Beside him sat a female named Lisa Tanner. She was the squad medic. Her hair was pulled back tight, and her eyes were always moving, always watching. She had a bag of medical supplies that she checked and rechecked constantly. There was a young male named Ryan Brooks. He looked barely old enough to fight. His hands shook sometimes when he thought no one was watching. First deployment, Kethral guessed. The young human would not last long if real combat came. The other 2 humans were quiet. They cleaned their weapons, ate their food, and spoke in low voices. They did not try to talk to the other species. They did not boast or show off. They simply prepared. It was strange. Thalassian warriors announced their strength. They displayed their scars and told stories of victory. The Draven competed constantly to prove their skill. Even the Moric would flex their massive bodies to show dominance. The humans did none of this. They just waited. 3 days later, the fleet reached the edge of the Vareth expanse. Kethral felt a chill when he looked at the view screen. The expanse was dark. Not just empty, but dark in a way that felt wrong. Stars seemed dimmer here. Space itself felt heavier. The fleet slowed. Sensors scanned in all directions. "Detecting a structure," the navigation officer announced. "Large, artificial. No power readings. No life signs." Commander Velthar leaned forward. "What is it?" "Unknown design. It does not match any known civilization. Age estimate is, this cannot be right. Report. The structure appears to be over 2 million years old. The bridge went silent. 2 million years. That was before any of the assembly species had achieved space travel. Before most of them had even evolved. We investigate, Velthar said. Prepare boarding teams. Kethral volunteered immediately. He wanted to see this ancient thing. He wanted to prove himself. He was assigned to Team 3. 6 Thalassians. 2 Draven. 4 Moric. And 4 humans. Kethral approached Daniel Cole as they gathered in the shuttle bay. Human, he said. Stay behind us. My team will take point. If there is danger, do not get in our way. Cole looked at him with those strange, flat eyes. Understood. No argument, no offense taken, just acceptance. Kethral did not know what to make of it. The shuttle launched. Through the window, Kethral watched the structure grow larger. It was massive. Bigger than any station he had ever seen. Black metal covered in strange symbols. No windows, no visible doors. Scanning for entry point, the pilot said. Found one. Docking in 2 minutes. Lisa Tanner checked her medical bag one more time. Ryan Brooks gripped his rifle so tight his knuckles went white. Daniel Cole just breathed. Slow and steady, the shuttle connected with a dull clang. Atmosphere is breathable, someone reported. But there is something else. Organic compounds in the air. Unknown composition. Weapons ready, Kethral ordered. The door opened. The smell hit them first. Sweet and rotten at the same time. Like meat left in the sun. Several soldiers made sounds of disgust. The humans said nothing. They just raised their weapons and moved forward. Kethral followed them into the darkness. He did not know it yet. But everything he believed about strength and weakness was about to change. Everything he thought he knew about fear was about to be destroyed. The ancient station was waiting for them. And something inside it was hungry. The corridor stretched ahead of them, swallowed by darkness that their lights could barely push back. Kethral led the way, his claws clicking against the metal floor. The sound echoed strangely, as if the walls were breathing. The smell grew worse with every step. That mix of sweet and rotten that made his stomach twist. Behind him, the team moved in formation. The Thalassians took the front. The Moric covered the rear with their heavy bodies. The Draven watched the sides with their dark-seeing eyes. The humans stayed in the middle. Kethral had put them there to keep them out of the way. Now he noticed they had spread out slightly, covering angles that the other species had missed. Scan shows a large chamber ahead, one of the Draven reported. 50 meters. Scan shows. Move slow, Kethral ordered. They moved. The walls around them were covered in symbols. Strange writing that none of them could read. It was old. Older than any language in the galactic records. Just looking at it made Kethral feel strange, like the symbols were trying to crawl into his mind. Do not look at the walls, Daniel Cole said quietly. Focus on the path. Kethral wanted to snap at the human for giving orders. But something in Cole's voice made him listen. He kept his eyes forward. They reached the chamber. It was huge. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above them. Their lights could not reach the far walls. And in the center of the chamber was a pit. Deep and black and wrong. But that was not the worst part. The bodies were the worst part. They covered the floor around the pit. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Different species. Some that Kethral recognized and some that he did not. They were not just dead. They were twisted, fused with the floor and walls. Their faces were frozen in expressions of pure terror. One of the Thalassians made a sound of horror. A Moric soldier turned away and vomited. What happened here? Someone whispered. Lisa Tanner moved forward, kneeling beside one of the bodies. She scanned it with her medical equipment. Her face showed nothing, but her hands were steady. They have been dead for a long time, she said. Hundreds of years at least, but their cellular structure is wrong, like something was feeding on them, not their bodies. Something else. What do you mean? Kethral asked. I do not know how to explain it. Their physical forms are mostly intact, but something is missing. Something that should be there. Well, Daniel Cole walked to the edge of the pit and looked down. His light could not reach the bottom. "We should leave," he said. "Now," Kethral bristled. "We have a mission. We need to find out what happened here. We know what happened. Something killed them. Something that might still be here. We report back and let the fleet decide the next move. I do not take orders from humans." Cole turned to look at him. His eyes were different now. There was something in them that Kethral had not seen before. Not fear exactly. Something older. "Then take it as advice," Cole said. "From someone who has seen things go bad before." Before Kethral could respond, one of the Draven screamed. Everyone spun around. The Draven soldier was on his knees, clutching his head. His forearms were shaking. His dark eyes were wide and leaking fluid. "It is in my head," he gasped. "It is in my head. Get it out. Get it out." Then the sound came. It was not really a sound. It did not come through their ears. It came from inside their minds. A scream that was also a whisper. A presence that was also an absence. It was the feeling of being watched by something that should not exist. Kethral staggered. His thoughts scattered like broken glass. Images flashed through his mind. His home burning. His family dead. His people destroyed. Every fear he had ever felt. Every nightmare he had ever had. All of it flooding into him at once. He fell to his knees. Around him, the team was collapsing. Thalassian warriors who had never known fear were screaming. The Morag were curled into balls, whimpering. The Draven were clawing at their own heads, trying to dig out the thing that was inside them. Through the chaos, through the storm in his mind, Kethral saw something impossible. The humans were still standing. Daniel Cole had one hand pressed against his temple. Blood was dripping from his nose. His face was tight with pain. But he was standing. He was moving. "Lisa, check the wounded," he said. His voice was strained but clear. "Ryan, watch the pit. Do not look directly into it." "Copy," Ryan Brooks said. The young soldier was shaking. Tears were running down his face, but he raised his weapon and pointed it at the pit. Lisa Tanner was already moving from body to body, checking on the fallen soldiers. She was crying too. Silent tears that she did not bother to wipe away. Her hands never stopped working. "How?" Kethral managed to gasp. "How are you still standing?" Cole looked at him. "We have practice." The presence in their minds grew stronger. It was curious now. It had expected the aliens to break. They always broke. But these small, soft creatures were still fighting. It pushed harder. Kethral watched in horror as Cole screamed. The human dropped to one knee. His whole body was shaking. More blood poured from his nose, from his ears, from the corners of his eyes, but he did not fall. He reached out and grabbed Kethral's arm. His grip was surprisingly strong. "Listen to me," Cole said through gritted teeth. "It attacks the mind. It uses fear. You need to find something to hold on to. A memory. A person. Something real. Focus on it. Do not let go. I cannot think. It is too strong. You can. You have to. What do you fight for? Who do you fight for?" Kethral thought of his daughter, her small face, her laughter, the way she looked at him like he was the strongest thing in the universe. The storm in his mind quieted. "Just a little, just enough." "Good," Cole said. "Now get up. We are leaving." Something moved in the pit. Ryan Brooks opened fire immediately. The sound of his rifle echoed through the chamber like thunder. The other humans joined him, laying down a wall of bullets at whatever was climbing up from the darkness. "Move," Cole shouted. "Everyone who can walk, help those who cannot. Move now." Kethral forced himself to his feet. He grabbed a fallen Thalassian and threw him over his shoulder. The weight almost drove him back down. But he held on. He thought of his daughter. The team ran. Behind them, something terrible was rising from the pit, and it was hungry. They ran through the corridors of the ancient station. Behind them, something followed. It did not walk or crawl. It moved like smoke, like shadow, like a nightmare given form. Kethral carried his fallen comrade and tried not to look back. Every time he glanced over his shoulder, he saw something different. A shape that kept changing. Eyes that appeared and disappeared. A mouth that was too wide. Too full of teeth that were not teeth at all. His mind screamed at him to understand what he was seeing. His mind failed. "Keep moving," Daniel Cole shouted from somewhere ahead. "Do not stop. Do not look at it directly." Lisa Tanner was helping a wounded Moric soldier. The creature was 3 times her size, but she had one of his arms over her shoulder and was practically dragging him forward. Her face was red with effort. She did not slow down. Ryan Brooks was at the rear, firing his weapon in short bursts. The bullets passed through the entity like it was made of fog. They did no damage that Kethril could see. "Weapons are not working," one of the Dravens screamed. "Keep shooting anyway," Cole said. "It slows it down. It has to reform each time." They reached a junction. 3 corridors branched off in different directions. "Which way?" Kethril demanded. "Which way is the shuttle?" Cole looked at each corridor. His eyes were still bleeding. His face was pale, but he pointed left without hesitation. "That way? 200 meters. How do you know?" "I memorized the layout on the way in." Of course he did. Kethril had thought the humans were being paranoid when they studied the maps so carefully. Now he understood. It was not paranoia. It was preparation. They ran left. The entity followed. It was getting closer. Kethril could feel it pressing against his mind again. That cold, terrible presence that wanted to crawl inside him and eat everything he was. Another Thalassian fell. He simply dropped to the ground and did not get up. His eyes were open but empty. Whatever made him alive was gone. "Leave him," Cole said. "We cannot stop. He might still be alive." "He is not. Trust me. Keep moving." Kethril wanted to argue, but he knew the human was right. He could feel it. The fallen warrior's mind was gone. The entity had taken it. They kept running. 50 meters from the shuttle, the entity stopped chasing them. It gathered at the end of the corridor like a wall of darkness. Watching. Waiting. Then it attacked differently. It stopped trying to overwhelm all of them at once. Instead, it focused on one target. The young Draven soldier who had been the first to scream. The one whose mind was already cracked. The Draven stopped running. He turned around to face the entity. His face was peaceful. Almost happy. "I understand now," he said. "I understand what it wants. It is so lonely. So hungry. It has been alone for so long. We should help it. We should feed it." "Stop him," Cole shouted. One of the other Draven reached for their companion. The affected soldier moved faster than anyone expected. He grabbed his weapon and pointed it at his own head. Lisa Tanner tackled him before he could fire. They went down in a tangle of limbs. The Draven was stronger, but Lisa fought dirty. She jabbed her fingers into his eyes, his throat, any weak point she could find. Ryan Brooks joined her, pinning the alien's arms while Lisa injected something into his neck. The Draven went limp. "What did you give him?" Kethril asked. "Sedative. Heavy dose. It will keep him unconscious for hours." Lisa stood up, breathing hard. "We need to move. Now. Before it tries that again." They ran the last 50 meters. The shuttle was still there, still intact. The pilot was unconscious at the controls, but alive. "Everyone inside," Cole ordered. "Lisa, check the pilot. Ryan, help me seal the door." Kethril dumped his unconscious comrade into a seat and looked back at the corridor. The entity was closer now. It had followed them silently. It was at the edge of the docking port, pressing against some invisible barrier. "Why is it not coming in?" one of the Moric asked. "The shuttle has shielding," Cole said. "Mental shielding. Standard on all human vessels. It cannot reach us in here. Human vessels have this protection? Why?" Cole did not answer. He just sealed the door and moved to the pilot seat. Lisa had the pilot in the back, checking his vitals. "He is alive. Mild damage to his neural pathways. He will recover." Cole sat down and started the shuttle. His hands were shaking, but they moved across the controls with practiced ease. "We are leaving. Everyone hold on." The shuttle detached from the station. Through the window, Kethril watched the entity. It was at the edge of the docking port, and he could swear it was watching them, studying them, especially the humans. "It let us go," Kethril said. "Why?" Cole was focused on flying. "It did not let us go. It is testing us, learning from us. It has never encountered anything that could resist it before. Now it has. That is not comforting. It is not meant to be." They flew back toward the fleet. Behind them, the ancient station sat in the darkness, waiting. Kethril looked around the shuttle. Of the 16 soldiers who had boarded the station, only 9 were still alive. 7 Thalassians dead, all 4 Morag dead, except for the one Lisa had been carrying. Both Draven dead, except for the one who had been sedated. The 4 humans were all alive, not unharmed. Daniel Cole was still bleeding from his eyes and ears. Lisa Tanner had a 1,000-yard stare that spoke of horrors she had seen and would never forget. Ryan Brooks was crying silently, his whole body shaking with delayed shock. But they were alive. Kethril wanted to ask them how. He wanted to understand. But he knew this was not the time. The shuttle docked with the Coalition flagship. Medical teams were waiting. They took the wounded and the dead. Commander Velthar met them in the hangar. His face was grave. "Report," he said. "We found the source of the disappearances," Kethril said. "Something lives on that station. Something that attacks the mind. It killed our people without touching them. It ate their thoughts, their fears, their very selves." "And the humans?" Kethril looked at Daniel Cole. The human was sitting on a supply crate, letting a medic examine him. He looked exhausted, broken, but still alive. "The humans survived," Kethril said. "They were the only reason any of us made it out." Velthar was silent for a long moment. "Then we need to understand why," he said. "Because that thing is still out there. And I do not think it is going to stay on that station forever." He was right. The entity had been dormant for 2 million years. Now, it was awake. And it had found new prey. The fleet retreated to a safe distance from the station. Commanders debated. Scientists analyzed. Politicians argued across holographic transmissions. But Kethril did not care about any of that. He sat in the medical bay and watched the humans. They had been given a private room. Through the observation window, he could see them sitting together. Not talking. Just existing in the same space. Lisa Tanner was checking their wounds one more time. Ryan Brooks was staring at his hands like he did not recognize them. Daniel Cole was sitting with his eyes closed, breathing slow and steady. A human doctor named Amy Reeves stepped out of the room. She was the medical officer assigned to the human contingent. Kethril had not spoken to her before. "You are the Thalassian from the boarding team," she said. "Kethril?" "H.E. Yes. They want to see you." Kethril was surprised. "Me? Why?" "I do not know. Cole asked for you specifically." He followed her into the room. The humans looked up when he entered. None of them seemed hostile. If anything, they looked understanding. "Sit," Cole said, pointing to an empty chair. "Please." Kethril sat. "You have questions," Cole said. It was not a question. "Many. Ask." Kethril did not know where to begin. He chose the most important question. "How did you survive? That thing attacked all of us equally. I felt it. It was not holding back against you. You should be dead. Like the others." Cole was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Do you know the history of Earth?" "I know the basics. A single planet species. Late development. Rapid expansion. That is the short version. The long version is different." Cole leaned back in his chair. "Humans evolved on a world that was trying to kill us. Everything was dangerous. The weather, the animals, the plants, even our own bodies. We had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. We were prey. All species face challenges. Not like us. We spent millions of years at the bottom of the food chain. Every day was survival. Every night was terror. We evolved big brains not because we were smart, but because we needed to outsmart things that wanted to eat us. Lisa Tanner spoke up. Fear is built into our biology. We carry it in our cells. Our ancestors were afraid every moment of their lives. That fear kept them alive. Ryan Brooks looked up from his hands. I was so scared on that station. More scared than I have ever been. I thought I was going to die. I thought my brain was going to break, but it did not, Kethril said. No, it did not, because I have been scared before. Not like that, but scared. And I learned that being scared does not mean you stop. It just means you keep going anyway. Cole nodded. That thing on the station feeds on fear. It uses fear as a weapon. It overwhelms the mind with terror until there is nothing left. But humans. He paused, searching for words. We are not immune to fear. We feel it just as strongly as anyone, maybe more strongly. But we have 10,000 generations of practice living with fear. We learn to put it in a box, to feel it, and still function. You compartmentalize, Kethril said, using a word he had heard human psychologists use. Yes, we feel the fear. We acknowledge it, and then we put it aside and do what needs to be done. It is not courage. It is survival. Kethril thought about what he had seen on the station. The Thalassian warriors who had faced enemies without flinching had crumbled under the psychic assault. They had never experienced true terror before. They did not know how to handle it. The humans had been terrified too. He had seen their tears, their shaking hands, their bleeding faces. But they had kept moving, kept fighting, kept functioning, because they were used to being afraid. There is something else, Lisa said. Something we do not talk about much. What? Humans are social creatures. We survive together. When one of us starts to break, the others hold them up. We anchor each other. She looked at Cole and Ryan. I would have fallen on that station. I know I would have. But I heard Daniel giving orders, and I had something to focus on. Ryan would have frozen, but he had us to protect. We keep each other sane. Cole reached over and put his hand on Ryan's shoulder. The young soldier looked up and managed a weak smile. We are pack animals, Cole said. We do not do well alone. Together, we can survive almost anything. Kethril thought about his own people. Thalassians valued individual strength. A warrior was judged by what they could do alone. Relying on others was seen as weakness. Maybe that was wrong. A chime sounded. Commander Velthar's voice came through the intercom. All senior officers to the bridge. The entity has left the station. Kethril felt his blood go cold. It is coming. Cole stood up. His face was grim but determined. Then we fight. We barely survived the first encounter. Our weapons did nothing. Our weapons did something. They slowed it down. And now we know more about it. Cole looked at his team. We know what it does. We know how it attacks. That gives us a chance. A chance at what? A chance to hurt it. They moved to the bridge. The view screen showed the ancient station, now surrounded by a dark cloud. The entity was expanding, growing, reaching toward the fleet. Commander Velthar turned to them. It is targeting the flagship. Estimated contact in 10 minutes. Evacuate non-essential personnel, Cole said. Velthar blinked. You do not give orders here, human. Then take it as strong advice. That thing feeds on minds. The more minds in one place, the more powerful it becomes. Spread the fleet out. Reduce crew to minimum. Give it less to eat. Velthar hesitated. Then he turned to his officers. Do it. All ships. Spread formation. Non-combat personnel to escape pods. The fleet began to scatter. Kethril watched the entity approach. It was vast now, a darkness that swallowed stars, and at its center, he could see something looking back, something hungry. How do we fight something like that? He asked. Cole checked his weapon. The same way we fight anything. Together. one step at a time. Until it dies, or we do. That is not a strategy. No, it is survival. Cole looked at him with those strange flat eyes. Are you with us? Kethral thought about his daughter, about his people, about everything he had believed about strength and weakness. I am with you, he said. Cole smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew they might die, and had accepted it. Then let us show this thing what happens when it picks a fight with humans. The entity reached the ship, and the real battle began. The entity hit the flagship like a wave of darkness. It poured through the hull without breaking it, passing through metal and energy shields like they were not there. Physical barriers meant nothing to it. Kethral felt the presence crash into his mind. Worse than before, stronger. It had fed on the mines it took on the station, and now it was hungry for more. Around him, crew members fell. They dropped where they stood, their eyes going blank, their mouths opening in silent screams. The entity was consuming them, taking everything they were and leaving nothing behind. But the humans did not fall. Daniel Cole grabbed Kethral's arm. Remember what I told you. Find your anchor. Hold on to it. Kethral thought of his daughter, her small face, her laughter. The weight of her in his arms when she was just a baby. The pressure in his mind eased. Just enough. Good, Cole said. Now stay close. We are going to try something. What? Something stupid. Cole moved toward the center of the bridge, where the presence was strongest. Lisa and Ryan flanked him. Their faces were twisted with pain, blood running from their noses and ears, but they kept moving. Kethral followed. He did not know what else to do. The entity noticed them. Its attention focused on the small group of creatures that were still standing, still fighting, still refusing to break. It pushed harder. Kethral watched Daniel Cole fall to his knees. The human screamed. It was the worst sound Kethral had ever heard. A sound of pure agony that came from somewhere deeper than the body. But Cole did not stop. He looked up at the darkness gathering above them and said, through gritted teeth and bloody lips, "Is that all you have?" The entity seemed confused. In its 2 million years of existence, nothing had ever challenged it like this. Nothing had ever resisted after being broken. Nothing had ever asked for more. It gave more. Cole collapsed completely. His body hit the deck. His eyes were open but unseeing. For a moment, Kethral thought he was dead. Then Cole started talking. "My name is Daniel Cole," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "I was born in Chicago. My mother's name was Maria. She made the best apple pie I ever tasted. My father taught me to fish. I had a dog named Scout when I was 10. Lisa Tanner picked up where he faltered. My name is Lisa Tanner. I became a medic because I watched my grandmother die and I could not help her. I swore I would never feel that helpless again. I liked the smell of rain on hot concrete." Ryan Brooks, crying openly now, added his voice. "My name is Ryan Brooks. This is my first mission. I am scared all the time. I joined up because I wanted to prove I was brave. I do not know if I am brave, but I am still here." They were anchoring themselves, using their identities, their memories, their connections to reality as shields against the entity's assault. And it was working. The entity pulled back slightly. Not much, but enough. It could not consume minds that were holding on to something. It could not eat thoughts that were focused on being real. Kethral understood. He added his own voice. "My name is Kethral Vaughn. I am a warrior of the Thalassian Empire. I have a daughter. Her name is Velsha. She is 6 years old. She thinks I am the strongest person in the universe. I want to see her again." Other survivors joined in. Those who had been on the edge of breaking found something to hold on to. They spoke their names, their memories, their reasons for existing. The entity screamed. It was a sound that shook the ship, that cracked walls and shattered screens. A sound of frustration and rage from something that had never known resistance. But it was also a sound of pain. "It is working," Cole said. He was on his feet again somehow. Barely. "It cannot feed on us if we hold on to ourselves. And it cannot exist without feeding." We are starving it. The entity thrashed. It tried different attacks. It showed them visions of their loved ones dying. It showed them futures where they failed. It showed them everything they feared. They kept talking. They kept remembering. They kept existing. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Kethral lost track of time. And then, finally, the entity began to fade. It was not destroyed. Something that old, that powerful, could not be destroyed so easily. But it was weakened, diminished, forced to retreat. The darkness pulled back. It flowed out of the ship like smoke being sucked through a vent. It returned to the station, smaller now, dimmer now. And then it was gone. Kethral collapsed. His whole body was shaking. He had never been so tired in his life. Cole sat down beside him. The human looked like death. His face was pale, his clothes soaked with sweat and blood, his hands trembling, but he was smiling. "We won," Cole said. "Did we? It is still out there. It will recover. It will hunt again. Maybe. But not today. Today, we survived. Today, we found a way to fight it." Cole looked at him with those strange human eyes. "That is what humans do. We survive. We learn. We adapt. And then we come back stronger." Kethral thought about everything he had seen. The warriors who fell. The humans who stood. The terrible thing in the darkness and the small, soft creatures who had faced it down. "I was wrong about your kind," he said. "Most species are. How do you do it? How do you carry so much fear and still function?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that Kethral would remember for the rest of his life. "We are not brave. We are not stronger than you. We are not better. We have just been afraid for so long that we learned to live with it. Fear is not our enemy. It is our oldest companion. We walk together." The rescue teams arrived. The wounded were taken to medical. The dead were counted. The fleet began the long process of recovery. Kethral stood at the observation window and watched the ancient station. It sat in the darkness, quiet now but not dead, waiting for its next meal. But Kethral was not afraid, not because the danger was gone. It was still there. It would always be there. But he had learned something from the humans. Something important. Fear was not weakness. Running from fear was weakness. Letting fear control you was weakness. But feeling fear and fighting anyway? That was strength. He thought about his daughter, about going home, about holding her in his arms and telling her that her father had faced a nightmare and survived. He would not tell her he was fearless. He would tell her the truth. He had been terrified, and he had kept going anyway. That was what the humans had taught him. That was what he would carry with him forever. The day he fought beside humans, the day he witnessed a terror no alien could survive, and the day he learned that survival was not about being stronger than your fear. It was about being afraid together.